Manifest destiny was the idea that Americans were divinely ordained to settle the entire continent of North America. The idea of manifest destiny inspired a variety of measures designed to remove or destroy the native population. Manifest destiny inflamed sectional tensions over slavery, which ultimately led to the Civil War. The manifest destiny. James K. Polk believed in an idea called manifest destiny, the belief that the United States was destined to expand from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. The idea ignored the rights of Mexicans and Native Americans already living on the land, but many Americans believed it was their duty to spread their political, economic, and social values to others. Polk set out to secure land that would include Texas, California, and New Mexico to help the nation with destiny. It required a war with Mexico, so they agreed to secede their northern territories from Texas to California. The United States, in return, paid Mexico $15 million, where Polk also acquired the Oregon Territory through a treaty with the British. With the exception of Alaska and Hawaii, the United States now occupied its present boundaries. States rights referred to the struggle between the federal government and the individual states or political power. This struggle focused heavily on the institution of slavery and whether the federal government had the right to regulate or even abolish slavery within an individual state. The sides of this debate were largely drawn between northern and southern states, thus widening the growing divide within the nation. The 10th Amendment was asserted into the Constitution largely to relieve tension and to assert the fears of the states' rights advocate, who believed that the newly adopted Constitution would enable the federal government to run roughshod over the state and the citizens, while the Federalists, who advocated a strong central government, had in that respect prevailed with the ratification of the Constitution. It was essential to the integrity of the document and to the stability of the fledgling country to acknowledge the interests of the anti-federalists, such as Patrick Henry, who has unsuccessfully opposed the strong central government created by the Constitution. The burning issue that led to the disruption of the Union was a debate over the future of slavery. That dispute led to secession, and secession brought about a war in which the northern and western states and territories fought to preserve the Union, and the South fought to establish Southern independence as a new confederation of the states under its own constitution. The agrarian South utilized slaves to tend its large plantations and perform other duties. On the eve of the Civil War, some 4 million Africans and their descendants toiled as slave laborers in the South. Slavery was interwoven into the Southern economy, even though only a relatively small portion of the population actually owned slaves. Slaves could be rented or traded or sold to pay debts. Ownership of more than a handful of slaves bestowed respect and contributed to social position. Enslaved as the property of individuals and businesses represented the largest portion of the region's personal and corporate wealth, as cotton and land prices declined and the price of slaves soared. Dred was a slave who sought citizenship through the American legal system and whose case eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. The famous Dred Scott decision in 1857 denied his request, stating that no person with African blood could become a U.S. citizen. Besides denying citizenship for African Americans, it also overturned the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which had restricted slavery in certain U.S. territories. Battle of Fort Sumter was the opening engagement for the American Civil War at the entrance to the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina. Although Fort Sumter had no strategic value to the North, it was unfinished and its guns faced the sea rather than Confederate shore batteries. It held enormous value as a symbol of the Union. The election of 1860 was held on November 6, 1860, in which Republican Abraham Lincoln defeated Southern Democrat John C. Breckinridge, Democrat Stephen A. Douglas, and Constitutional Union candidate John Bell. The electoral split between Northern and Southern Democrats was emblematic of the superior sectional split, particularly over slavery, and in the months following Lincoln's election, and before his speech in March 1861, 7 states, led by South Carolina on December 20th, 1860, seceded, setting the stage for the American Civil War.
The Georgia Secession Convention of 1861 signifies the climax of the state's political sovereignty. With periodic interruptions, the convention met in Milledgeville from January 16th to March 23rd, 1861, and not only voted to secede the state from the Union, but also created Georgia's first new constitution since 1798. Georgia's leaders who supported Calhoun's idea of Southern unity were called Southern Writers. The Georgia Platform helped to calm the arguments against the Compromise of 1850 and generate acceptance among Southern leaders. It influenced the other Southern leaders to reject South Carolina's move to secede. As a result, South Carolina canceled its convention. Georgians had to prevent secession at least for another decade.
The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 brought into the United States about 828,000 square miles of territory from France, thereby doubling the size of the young republic. What was known at the time as the Louisiana Territory stretched from the Mississippi River in the east to the Rocky Mountains in the west, and from the Gulf of Mexico in the south to the Canadian border in the north. Part or all of 50 states were eventually created from the land deal, which is considered one of the most important achievements of Thomas Jefferson's presidency. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 was worked out between the North and the South and passed by the U.S. Congress that allowed for admission of Missouri as the 24th state in the United States. It marked as the beginning of a sectional conflict over the extension of slavery that was one of the key points that led to the American Civil War. The Kansas-Nebraska Act was an 1854 bill that mandated popular sovereignty, allowing settlers of a territory to decide whether slavery would be allowed within a new state's borders. Proposed by Stephen A. Douglas, Abraham Lincoln's opponent in the influential Lincoln-Douglas debates, the bill overturned the Missouri Compromise's use of latitude as the boundary between slave and free territory. The conflicts that arose between pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers in the aftermath of the Act's passage led to the period of violence known as Bleeding Kansas and helped pave the way for the American Civil War.